afternoon, and welcome to BBC Two.
Hello and welcome to Back to the 80s, the podcast that travels back through time in a rose-tinted DeLorean. And this is going to be a bit of a sad one, I'm afraid. I did intimate on the last podcast with Jenny and Glyn. Obviously, I'd like to thank them for being on the podcast again. But I did say that this podcast, we would be talking about the very sad passing last week of the All-Father, really, I suppose we can call him. The man without whom a lot of us wouldn't be here talking about nerdy stuff and indeed being nerds. Stan Lee, of course, sadly passed away last Monday, on the 12th it was. He was 95 years old. He was old and he'd had health problems of the year, but we'll talk about this in a bit. It was still a bit of a shock. But joining me to talk about our memories of Stan Lee and Stan Lee's creations. He hasn't been on in a while, but he pops up from time to time. He's still very, very much part of the team. It's your friend of mine, Mr. Phil.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Phil. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me back for this one. This is one of those... I haven't had many defining moments of childhood heroes passing. The last one really being Harold Ramis. Yeah. And I've already got a tear in the corner of my eye. This is going to be so hard. But yeah, that hit me hard, and this kind of a lot of people in work were like, "No black armband," trying to make light of it. But it's a. I think I tried to say it when I posted it. It's like nobody lives forever, but this is the one person everybody kind of wished could.
Or the one person you'd bet on being able to.
Yeah. But then ultimately probably will through.
Oh, absolutely.
Means, but I'm sure we'll touch on that. But yeah, it's a fitting one for me to come back to, I guess.
Well, that's what I thought, because let's face it, there's not many people sort of worship Captain America as much as you do. And although he's not a Stan Lee creation, let's get that out of the way straight away. If there wasn't a Stan Lee, I don't think Cap would be as popular now as he is.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say. Obviously, it was Joe Simon and Jack Kirby that created him, but I think maybe after the war he'd had his time and Stan sort of fit to bring him back and obviously bring Jack Kirby back on board. And I think, obviously, he popularised. And I think that with a few creations of other people that he used, he popularised them again.
Yeah.
Namor would be another one.
Mm-hmm.
Human Torch would be definitely another one.
Yeah.
Believe me, I'll get into that in a minute. And obviously, the creations that he did with other people, such as Spider-Man with Steve Ditko and the Hulk with Ditko and Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. That was more Ditko than Stan, but Stan was still sort of there plotting away.
Yeah.
And obviously all the things he did with Jack Kirby, like the Fantastic Four, which was the first thing that he really did create.
Yeah.
And that was a response in the Justice League.
Yeah.
That was a direct response, because obviously if you don't know your history of comic books, after the Second World War, superheroes weren't popular.
Nope.
At all.
Nope.
It was felt that the real heroes were the men and women who had fought in the Second World War. Mm-hmm. And then it was a bit churlish to sort of popularise superheroes, so they died a death. Yeah. And in the 50s, for late 40s, early 50s, it was all like Jerry Lewis comics and Western Tales and that kind of Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
That's when Jonah Hex appeared, that kind of thing. And Gary Cooper comics. There's some amazing stuff out there. The only ones that really survived were Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
They were just far too popular to get rid of.
Yeah, the Trinity, yeah.
But even then, there were a lot of like domestic Superman comics, like Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane, and but 50s comics are ace. I won't have a word said against them. But obviously, towards the end of the 50s, Garner Fox and Julie Schwartz at DC said, "Let's try superheroes again."
Yeah.
So they did, and they were very popular. And then I think were they Timely just before Marvel?
Yes, I believe it was. Timely became Marvel, didn't it?
Yeah, it was his cousin's company, wasn't it?
Yeah.
His cousin, Martin. My publisher, Martin. That's the Martin.
Yeah.
So he'd never had a proper job in his life.
No.
This is the thing you have to understand about Stan Lee. He apart from the army, he'd never actually worked a proper job in his life. Never gone out and got a job.
No.
Which is hilarious considering all the times he wrote about Spidey trying to get jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
So he worked with Martin. He was thinking of walking away from comics because he wanted to be the next great American author or playwright, like a Neil Simon, Jack Kerouac sort of type person, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Hemingway. That's who he really wanted to be. He wanted to be Hemingway.
Yeah.
But he decided to give comics one more try. He invented this team called the Fantastic Four. Imbued them with not only superpowers, but also major flaws in their personalities. Something which DC comic superheroes didn't have, really, back then.
Yeah.
They didn't have sort of conflicts of faith and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly wouldn't fight.
No.
I don't know if have you ever read the early Fantastic Four comics?
I have a few issues that I got with action figures and stuff.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's probably a long time since I have read them because we're talking probably the Toy Biz era is when you got the comics rather than sort of like the modern stuff. But yeah, it's but then the Fantastic Four have kind of always stayed that way, haven't they? I don't.
They toned it down because I was just going to say I used to have the collected early comics, like sort of issue 1, like the first year of comics, first 2 years of comics, and it's mainly concerned with them just fighting each other.
Yeah.
Just arguing and bickering and Namor getting involved.
Yeah.
Because Namor, this is in the period when Namor was a dick, which I believe he's a dick again, isn't he?
I believe so. Is it you're talking about the point where Namor was just basically trying to bone Sue?
Rape.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It wasn't just bone. He tried everything. He tried pretending to be Reed Richards. He'd be hypnotised her to bring her down to the to Atlantis and things like that. He was just the worst. I hate Namor so much.
Essentially, Namor really started off as I don't want to say villain, but it
was.
Yeah, but anti-hero doesn't work either. He's I suppose villain probably is the best word because basically he just did want to, as you say, rape Sue. You know, he didn't want to take over the world. He just wanted to impregnate this blonde thing. You know, it's like
yeah. I mean, no, you're completely right. He saw Sue. He wanted her. And as much as he would want her to consent, he's okay with her not consenting.
Yeah.
He's all right with it. He's good with it. He doesn't really care.
Namor is your typical 22-year-old American college student now that just thinks he can go around and stick it in anything.
Dubra frat boy.
Yeah.
Basically. And then you have Doom, who just wanted to kill them all.
Yeah.
Again, I love Dr. Doom so much. I love what he became, but I love him in the early comics as well. He just hates Reed Richards so much.
Doom is probably the most complex villain, but has the most basic of underlying. I don't know if you're going to get what I'm trying to say here. Is he's quite shallow in a way, in his, but he's complex.
He's layered, but his animal motivation is I hate Reed Richards.
Yeah, exactly.
I blame Reed Richards for everything bad that's ever happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's all his fault.
Yep.
And somehow I'll make it his fault. And to be fair, in the early editions of the comic as well. Ben Grimm's a bit like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I blame him for this. And it's only when he finds Alicia does that kind of change. When he finds out that Alicia prefers him as the Thing, that actually changes.
Yeah.
And they still bring it up from time to time, and they try and drive a wedge between him and Reed, but really they are best mates.
Yeah. I suppose the dynamic, as you said at the very, very beginning, was like, hey, let's go up into space, let's do this thing. Oh, cosmic rays, oh, look, we're like this. Reed, you're a dick.
Yeah.
You did this to me. You know, so...
And of course he hates Johnny, because Johnny's young and forever taking the piss, and kind of gets immunity. And again, that's obviously Human Torch wasn't an original character by Stan Lee. He was somebody who had been around a long time before.
Mm-hmm. Because the original Human Torch... Oh, God, what did you call him? It's the one that was part of the Invaders. Was it the Invaders? Yeah. The original Human Torch was a guy in a suit. Because obviously the suit appeared in an episode of Agent Carter.
Yes. Stanley also created.
Yes. I can't think of the original Human Torch's name. But anyway, yeah, so the concept of the character was there, so yes, he borrowed that, and...
it was a retool.
Yeah.
Before retools had been invented.
Mm-hmm.
But that did cause trouble later on down the line, because I remember one of my very first encounters with a Marvel cartoon was the Fantastic Four cartoon of the late 70s.
Yep.
And in that, they didn't have the Human Torch. They had a robot, like an R2-D2 style robot, because late 70s, called Herbie.
Herbie, that's right, yeah.
Who looked suspiciously similar to the robot out of the Space Sentinels.
Jim Hammond.
Jim Hammond, there we go.
And he was an android. He wasn't a human. Yeah, Herbie. Yeah, the cartoon.
It's because they couldn't use the Human Torch for the cartoon back then. They could now, no problems. But back then, licensing issues meant that they could use 3 Marvel characters, but not the character that wasn't originally from Marvel.
Yeah.
So you got Herbie. So I, for years, thought Herbie was over the magic torch, the Human Torch.
Yeah,
that was Jamie.
Herbie and his magic torch.
Exactly.
But then the Human Torch has always had that kind of thing when it came to television, until they did the really modern cartoons with it, because obviously he was meant to be the third member of Spider-Man: His Amazing Friends, until somebody went, "Oh, we can't do that. Kids will set themselves on fire." But yet Firestar was allowed to...
No, that's not the reason. It was licensing.
Was it but...
It was purely licensing. They wanted to use him, and their licensor said, nope, not allowed to. Well, it's going to cost you X amount of money, and of course, the Sunbow, who did it, didn't have that kind of cash. So they just said, just to create somebody then. So they created Firestar. Plus, it would have been very, very awkward had Bobby and Peter been after Johnny Storm all the time, like they were. I mean, that was weird.
Yeah.
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. The amount of, I'll go out with both of you. It's like, really, Jessica? Really? Jessica was a bit of a hussy.
Yeah, she was.
And then she ended up walking off with Sunstar anyway.
That's true.
So what the hell?
Yep.
But no, that was the first Marvel cartoon I got into. And the first comics I got into probably would have been Marvel Weekly over here in the UK, which collated issues that were going around America. So as much as I do love the Ditko Spider-Man, I've got to put hand on heart and say the Spider-Man I grew up with was probably John Romita.
Yeah.
Which is the classic look of the... I realise Ditko's is the first, but I would say the classic Spider-Man is probably John Romita Jr.'s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at it, basically. Just look at it. It's amazing. And then, obviously, when you get older and edgier, you look at Todd McFarlane's work.
Yeah.
And it's that famous poster that he had where he was on the web with all the spiders crawling over him.
Yes.
And obviously, Venom.
Oh, pardon me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what were your sort of first memories of Marvel or Stan Lee?
Comic-wise, I can't think, because... I know that I had comics when I was younger, but I can't think what. So I can't...
You get the annuals?
Yeah, like, I remember sort of, definitely, as I say, the mind is quite fuzzy. I'm getting old. The mind is quite fuzzy. So I know that I had sort of books, and I know that I loved Spidey as a kid, and...
Because kids do.
Yeah, exactly. Even Ariel loves Spidey. So it's my first concrete memory of anything that was created by Stan is obviously Spider-Man, coming from cartoons and stuff, as you say. That original. No, that's Spider-Man's Amazing Friends. The other one, the original. Yes.
On Saturday Superstar.
Yes. But then obviously, Spider-Man's Amazing Friends was like a big one to me, and
yeah, huge.
But then Stan always sort of like narrating in the cartoons probably was the first, because he's got such an iconic voice.
Yeah, greetings, true believers.
Yeah, so you that kind of like sticks with you, and as you get older and you realize that he's the guy that but no, I'm really fuzzy when it comes to what comics it is. So trying to think. I always have liked all the characters that he created. Doctor Strange is something that I got into well later. I have one of the essential collections of it now, of some of the really early stuff.
Trippy as hell.
Yeah.
That's Ditko for you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Ditko was there. Ditko had the idea. Ditko knew what it was, but obviously Stan was writing stories that this was all layered on top of. But it's just my sort of big memory of, well, not memory, but this big thing that I have about Stan is obviously the fact that all of it, everybody knows I'm like Marvel guy. I'm very, like, I watch DC TV shows, I've watched the movies and stuff like that, but I'm not a big fan of everything. There's very sort of niche, narrow bit of DC that I can get into. Mainly Batman and the Flash. Although the Wonder Woman movie was good, but anyways. So the fact that Stan tried to make all his characters as accessible as possible, and as you said, sort of like, I don't want to say that's not what DC was like, but more relatable. Like I always looked at, like, I loved the Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, so like, but comic book wise, looking at Superman, I was just kind of like, I can't identify with that. So whenever obviously the likes of Spidey and sort of stuff, that is like, oh, it's a teenage guy trying to get through school and then sort of get jobs, and that's it, when it's something that you can latch on to like that. And X-Men, it's like, we haven't mentioned him at all, but obviously probably one of, apart from Spidey, if you ask somebody, who Stan created, yes, we've got Fantastic Four, but they've been pushed aside and mistreated so much over the last few years that most people will say the X-Men. But even those have been mistreated so badly over the last few years, literally because Marvel's like, fuck you, Fox, that kind of thing. But then that doesn't really matter come January next year. Yeah, so like I have big memories of X-Men and reading those growing up. Like, but again, sort of I have random issues of Stan's Run and sort of a collection of Stan's Run, and the characters are really very different, but in a good way. Probably more relatable back then than they are now, because if you look at Stan's Cyclops versus Cyclops right now, totally different characters. Completely and utterly different characters. So. But
because I guess, it changed in the 90s as far as I can tell, because Claremont obviously changed Cyclops a lot, because it was Cyclops I grew up with was basically, use a wrestling analogy, Hulk Hogan. He was say your prayers, take your vitamins, and everybody loved him because he was the all-American guy. And then in the 90s, he turned into basically Kurt Angle. Yeah. So he was doing exactly the same things that Hulk Hogan was doing, but you saw it in a different light because he was supposed to be a bit of a dick because he wasn't Wolverine. And sadly, that's what X-Men comics became in the 90s. Then it isn't Wolverine, don't care.
Yeah. Well, the even going into the noughties and into the into the millennium sort of like run of things, whenever they finally kill Jean off completely, and paired him up with Emma. Like, spoilers for comics that are really old, to the point that he kills Professor X and stuff, you know, and he gains the Phoenix power. Well, then there was about 5 of them got the Phoenix Force, wasn't there? Emma got it. Yeah, Emma got it. I believe Colossus got it at one point, and then Colossus became the Juggernaut. It's like, oh, what the hell? Anyways, you know, so Scott, as it stands at the minute, is a murdering tosspot, and that's not Scott, you know, to the point that they actually pulled the original 5 members from an alternate reality into continuity now to try and have Stan's original versions of the characters, but then Bendis got his fucking hands on them, and no, I'm not even going there. This is about Stan. So, you know, yeah, so, like, I know sort of, like, when he created a character, he kind of thought, how can I make this as relatable as possible? And we all know Spidey was the geeky teenager, and that was, like, who was reading the books at the time. And the X-Men, I've heard it from him in numerous interviews, different ways. Like, obviously he sort of likened it to kind of civil rights at one point, and then it was likened to the gay movement at one point, and you know, and one I listened to recently, he likened it just to like an extended family dynamic, but then it's kind of taken, so like obviously things from the Fantastic Four again, but I think that Stan's big point was he could write superheroes as believable people.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a jokey point as well, as like every single superhero in the Marvel universe lives in New York. but hey, that's where Stan's from. You know,
well, that was to make it easier, because obviously in DC it's Metropolis and Gotham and Central City and Keystone City and place. If you put them all in one place, it's easier for everyone to be on the same page.
Yeah,
basically. So, I mean, at the time he was writing 10 books, basically writing a paragraph, sending it to the artist and saying, this is what happens, basically. The artist would then go and write the story visually, and then send it back to Stan, who would then do all the word balloons.
Yeah.
So he was still writing them, but it was the Marvel method. Basically, it was, you know, they could churn them out a little bit quicker than maybe DC could, and there was a bit more continuity there. Because I guess it was the whole, he wanted kids to be able to believe that they could run into them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and like I say, it just makes it easier to plot. And you know, if they are all in one universe, they can meet up. Because they knew full well the popularity of the Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
That had been really super popular, and DC had been doing the same universe stuff for years. They were the ones who created that idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, Stan took a lot from DC and admitted it and said, totally, yeah, absolutely, because, you know, they were the leaders at that point. They were the ones who were trending everything. The reason he made all his heroes relatable is because DC weren't doing that. So he had to find an angle that they weren't doing.
Yeah.
And they weren't doing that because DC's characters are akin to gods, effectively. Yeah. Whereas Stan's characters aren't. They're relatable. They're people who, you know, gained their powers rather than were born with them.
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot of DC heroes at the point were, especially like Superman and Wonder Woman. So you'll find it. And the other good thing about the Marvel is that 9 times out of 10, it's science. It's the atom. It's all atomic power. And so there was believable science. I mean, it's hokum. Of course it is. It's hogwash.
Yeah.
But
goodness. Yeah.
All that crap about gamma rays and stuff. If you were really bombarded with all those gamma rays, you'd die. But the point is that yes, you would, but Bruce Banner didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's one of the great things about Marvel is they can say, oh, yes, normally a person would. You know, Matt Murdock, covered in all those chemicals, he'd die if he was normal. But he's not normal. He's Matt Murdock.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is where they are superhuman. They have to have the right sort of DNA structure and this kind of thing. I kind of like that. And a lot of them didn't want their powers to begin with. That's the other thing about Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that the powers aren't necessarily good things. They're a hassle.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man's powers are a curse.
Yeah, totally.
More often than not. Certainly Hulk's are.
Yeah.
Mind you, Hulk's powers changed over time because originally It was when it got dark.
Yeah.
It would change. The anger thing came a lot later.
Yeah, it was more like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing originally.
And Hulk could talk. Normally.
Yeah, and obviously there was the grey kind of original sort of thing, and then it's like, oh wait, green ink's cheaper.
No, it was an accident. It was an accident. They saw grey, but the grey turned to green over time. So they said, well, why not just do it green? Green works.
Yeah.
So that's why you get the Green Hulk. And I mean, it was all happenstance, but it sort of fell into place and it worked to just turn him into this giant rage monster.
Yeah. Because I suppose, sort of, as you say, sort of like the original version could talk, and that was obviously segue. The original plan for Age of Ultron was when Wanda mind fucked him, he would turn grey and be able to communicate, but then obviously be not in control. But the movie was bunged enough as it was. But there's speaking of movies, obviously Stan has been in many movies and many TV shows, and has been around for quite a bit in that respect, and hopefully will be for a while.
5 or 6 cameos have got filmed.
I think it was 5 or 6 were filmed. I can't remember if it was at the same time as Ragnarok or if it was the same time as Guardians 2.
Guardians 2, because it was James Gunn.
It was James. Yeah, he did them. I actually have seen a clip recently of the ones for Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of different versions of it, and they basically just have had Stan in a green screen room and have put loads of different costumes on him and just made him say lots of different lines. So they'll be able to drop these into basically a scene in literally any movie they want. Yeah. And they have confirmed that he specifically has filmed a scene for Avengers 4.
Yes.
Which rumor has it the trailer's on Friday. But yeah, so what's your favorite cameo that he's ever done out of anything? Like from even going right back to the cartoons right up to now.
Oh, that's a toughie. Because I sort of want to count non-Marvel cameos as well. Because I liked the stuff he did in Mallrats.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was fantastic. Because that was peak Stan Lee as well.
Yeah.
And obviously all the stuff he did in sort of the television programs I grew up watching. The favourite one of all the Marvel films, I've got 2.
Right, okay.
I've got Hey There, Hef.
Yeah.
In the original Iron Man. And I like the one he did for Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, with the...
My hands aren't as steady as they used to be. It's when he says, oh, you will not cut my hair. So says the mighty Thor. Please, sir, don't cut my hair.
Yeah. I saw, again, very short segue, I saw a video recently on YouTube how the Russo brothers and Taika Waititi ruined Thor, and I just dismiss, go away, because they didn't. They made him better. Anyways.
They turned Thor into Flash Gordon. That film is just Flash Gordon, and they're all the better for. I thought The Dark World was terrible.
It is, but...
It's so po-faced. And then they just... Thor is an action adventure. It always has been. They needed to do what they did. To me, what went on in Thor Ragnarok made what happened in Infinity War all the more poignant.
Yep.
Because he finally got to a place where he was happy, and he reconciled with Loki. Yeah, and they'd lost Asgard, but they were happy because they realised that Asgard wasn't the place; it was them. And then fucking Thanos turned up, ruined everything,
and murders half of them.
yeah. For no real reason, you know. Yeah,
well, that's the thing. It's like without going too far, of course. They made him what he needs to be. He needs to be a lighthearted character. If you take Thor seriously as a character, he's just boring.
Yeah, it was just po-faced was The Dark World. It just didn't work, and they needed something to inject a bit of something into it. And that absolutely worked. And then having the Hulk tag along was genius, because those two characters work really well together.
Yep, they do, yeah.
And him and Banner worked really well together. And then putting a character like Valkyrie in the mix, just sort of, that was amazing. I loved her. She was great. And I love the fact that she was drunk for half the movie as well.
Yeah.
Until Loki did what he did. But again, Loki was marvellous. I can't wait for the Loki TV show.
I know.
I thought we were done, but Hiddleston's coming back. Oh, yeah.
Well, he has filmed stuff for Avengers 4, but we all kind of knew that doesn't necessarily mean he's alive. So like Avengers 4 is going to be all over the show.
I think it'll be a big reset button at the end.
I think it might be too.
And I think one character will be sacrificed.
Oh, I know who's going to sacrifice
himself. Cap's dead.
Yeah, like I am already well prepared, and I am not afraid to admit it because I haven't been on the show since the movie came out. But oh man,
you'll be in bits.
Peter in Infinity War. I saw that movie 3 times across 24 hours, I think it was, and was in bits all 3 times.
Parker or Quill? Parker or Quill?
Parker.
All right. Quill was pretty upsetting as well.
Yeah. And I don't get the hate for Peter Quill. It's like he did what every human being would do.
He found out the woman he loved was dead.
Yeah, of course you're gonna.
He wasn't thinking.
Yeah. But yeah.
Have you not seen 2 Guardians films that show that he is completely just unpredictable?
Yeah. So yeah. Really quickly, sort of because we're off topic, but the time I think the second viewing was Kim, and I'm sitting with tears streaming down my face and a big lump in my throat, and she looked at me and went, "You do know it's a movie?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "I bet you cried when Dumbledore died." It's like that's my thing. So like, but yeah, getting back to the cameos, I think one of my favorite ones. Is I probably have a few, but the one that stands out the most, because it's just the one that made me laugh the most, is Are You Tony Stank?
Yeah, I love Tony Stank.
Yes.
Oh, well, yes, it's Tony Stank right here.
But and I really like the one from is it the second Fantastic Four movie? No, it's the first. No, it is the second one where he's Willie Lumpkin.
Yeah.
The postman.
Good to have you back, Mr. Richards.
Yeah, it's because that's a proper character from the comics, so it was nice for him to just not be random inserted person here. Although in saying that in Guardians 2, he obviously was hanging out with the Watchers.
Yeah. And then I was a FedEx guy.
Yeah, exactly. But that just kind of fed into the big fan theory that everybody thought that he was one of the Watchers because he's been in every movie.
But they think he might be a Uatu.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which would be awesome if that was the case. Did you hear about the suggestion that somebody had for future cameos when they do finally run out?
Oh, the Deadpool one?
The Deadpool one, that has to happen.
It has, yeah.
So basically, if you've not heard of this, so it's not just between me and Phil, somebody suggested that when they do finally run out, sadly, of Stan Lee cameos, they should get Deadpool to put a Stan Lee wig, moustache and aviator shades on and just turn up and do the Stan Lee cameos. Which is fantastic. Yeah, absolutely, because that works so well. And it's something Deadpool would do.
Yeah. Yeah, but he needs to try and do the voice as well, but do it badly so you can tell that it's Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool trying to do Stan Lee.
That's another one of my favourite cameos as well. It's not even from a film. Zip it, Stan Lee!
Yeah, that's from the trailer, yeah. So
hey, look, it's Deadpool!
Oh, man. Oh, it's just...
Just enjoyed everything. He enjoyed life through Stan Lee. One thing that people say about him, if you met him, thankfully I did, and if you actually spent any sort of time with him, you'd find out the enthusiasm that he had for the medium and the fact that he was the modern day P.T. Barnum.
Yeah,
he could sell anything. A lot of people, obviously people do criticise him for. I don't want to say taking sole credit. He didn't dispute the fact that people gave him sole credit.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time. So people like Jack Kirby and Joe Simon and his own brother, Larry Lieber, and obviously Steve Ditko did get sort of stiffed for a long, long time. It sort of ended 2002, that did.
Yeah.
With the release of the first Spider-Man movie, that, you did see Stan Lee with Steve Ditko, or Stanley and Steve Ditko, and things like that. And I think, from what I can gather from the little research I've done, is that Stanley wasn't very confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
So he would find it hard to correct people when they said, "Oh, you invented," because he was the mouthpiece of the company.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I'm not defending him on this at all, but Ditko was very happy to sit back and not take credit.
Yeah, it kind of came a lot later, didn't it? I think it was more other people going like, "Hey, wait, you like Ditko's family and the estate going, "Hey, wait, why are we not getting?"
And Kirby's family, obviously.
Yeah, because that being the big one. But yeah, it's I don't see that as Stan's fault.
I do in a way, but I don't think he did it from a bad place. I just think, like I say, he wasn't very confrontational, and he would go away when people got fired, for instance. They hated Stan going on vacation because that means that's when people would get fired.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to be around for that. And when people, he wouldn't correct people.
Yeah,
is what it is. Maybe he should have, but he wrote about flawed human beings. He was a flawed human being.
Yeah,
and Ros Kirby hated him until she went to her grave, and it's a sad situation, but there it is. It happened. It has now been resolved. Sadly, it couldn't have been done in Jack's lifetime, which would have been nice. But at least Ditko, that was, because obviously Ditko died earlier on in the year.
Yeah.
Which is quite scary and quite weird that, he died March this year, I think he died, Steve Ditko.
Something like that, yeah.
And then obviously Stan's now passed away, and that's it now. That's the Titans have finally left us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real shame. And there have been people this week who've decided to stick the boot in, seeing as a man's just died, because that's a classy thing to do, isn't it? So you got Bill Mayer saying that, comic books for kids, I don't know why he's so revered, and it's like, fuck off, Bill. You're just trying to, make money off the fact that a guy's died, because that's what you do. You're not an iconoclast, you're just a douche canoe.
Yeah, it's like the fact that he says that adults try to treat comic books as legitimate literature. It's like nobody has ever tried to put a comic book over as legitimate literature. It's not like nobody's ever tried to say that the Fantastic Four is the equivalent of Romeo and Juliet.
I would completely dispute everything you just said. I think it is a legitimate medium. You get someone like Alan Moore.
Right, no, but what I'm saying is you don't hear people on soapboxes trying to say that. Certain people will believe it. Like if you take the like of Neil Gaiman, isn't it Gaiman you pronounce his surname? Yeah. Like things like Sandman and stuff like that. And even flipping Watchmen, there's a lot of things that legitimately is really well written and should be on a shelf beside some of the great classical things, Catcher in the Rye, like Great Gatsby, whatever is your book of choice. There are certain things out there written by comic book authors in inverted commas that should share the shelf with all of those, but nobody is out there trying to I don't think there's anybody championing that for him to turn around and attack, is the point I'm trying to get across.
At the end of the day, Bill Mayer thinks he is some sort of iconoclast. He thinks he tears down. Yeah. He does the same thing with religion. He does the same thing with things like Islam, Muslims, and things like, oh, look at me, look, I'm so edgy, and I say this about this, and then people get angry, and I'm proved right every time, and it's like, mate, you pissed off the wrong people, because even Power Entertainment have said, look, mate, you're completely disgusted. What an unclassy thing to say about a guy who's just died. If you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything.
Yeah.
It's like the douche canoes on Twitter, and there's been plenty of those saying, I'm glad he's dead, he was a racist old homophobe anyway. I mean, where do you get that? Where did that come from?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he really wasn't. Have you read any X-Men comic at all ever? Have you read the Stan Soapbox from 1968 where he calls out racism and says, look, but these people are really unhappy people. They're going to blame everybody for everything. So, some people are dicks. Just get over it. But I don't think Stan Lee he worked in the entertainment industry. The chances of him being a homophobe, pretty slight. the chances of him being racist pretty slight. And he was, a Romanian Jew that had to flee because of bloody discrimination back in the old country and things like that. It's like, no, I don't think he was either of those things particularly. He used to go on, like I say, all the time about racism and homophobia and the fact that he hated these things and why can't people just get along. And I think some people listen to things from other people and say, yeah, that's definitely it.
It's a case of being uneducated in the respect, and it happens all the time on social media. And you see people shouting out about it and stuff. Like somebody sees a headline like, "Oh, I don't even want to go to anything topical at the minute," but say it's like, "Oh, the sun's not warm anymore," and people will be like, "Yeah, the sun's not warm anymore. There's proof," and it's just like, what? It's just piss off. Yeah. I know. Flat Earth. Oh, fucking hell. I was going to go Brexit, but then I thought, no, quick, no.
No. Brexit's the same. People are finding out now that, don't read up on a subject and just vote with your heart instead of your head. And, that worked out well, didn't it?
Like the guy on, what is it? What's that radio station?
LBC.
LBC, yeah, let's begin conversation. The guy who rang in and literally cried for 2 minutes because he voted to leave. Yeah, I'm glad you're blaming yourself.
Yeah,
the presenter tried to play it down, saying, "Oh, it's the rich people that own the Ritz and stuff." But no, it's assholes like him.
It's his fault. Literally his fault.
That one vote, but it's people like him that basically, and like all those people that voted, I voted leave because I didn't think it actually would happen. Oh, fuck. Anyways, that's not to do with Stanley. But yeah,
Well, I think the point stands, because in Britain at the moment we're being held to ransom by a bunch of religious nutters from the smallest place in the UK. Mm-hmm. No offence, Phil. But, Northern Ireland is currently fucking the UK over more than anybody else because some religious nutters who've been paid £1 billion, are saying, no, we're not voting the way you want to vote because you're not doing what they want to do.
But the thing is like, and I don't get this, right? There's such a minority voice because the majority of Northern Ireland voted to frickin' stay.
Well, I hate them, and they don't want a hard border with Ireland, because that would be stupid.
If there was a hard border in Ireland, my life in work would be a hell of a lot harder, trust me. But, the point you make is a valid one, that people just don't listen to news and facts anymore. They just say, I've heard this must be true, therefore Stanley racist and homophobe. I don't think he was a racist and a homophobe. He certainly didn't seem to be a racist and a homophobe in anything I've ever saw him. In fact, he did tell an interesting story once about homophobia, not from him, but from the TV station. This is with The Incredible Hulk. Mm-hmm. All right? So this is the TV series that Kenneth Thompson, I want to say, probably not. The guy who did The Fugitive. That's why the Hulk is like The Fugitive. It's the same guy who invented it. So when the network were doing it, they came to Stan and said, "We need your permission to change something." I said, "Okay, what?" I said, "Well, we want to call him David Banner instead of Bruce Banner. Is that okay?" And he said, all right, why do you want to do that? Is it because it's like an alliterative name? And they said, no, it's because we find Bruce is a bit of a homosexual name. And he's like, what? What? Oh, I didn't realise you could have homosexual names, but there you go. Fair enough, I guess. But so that's why they called him David Bruce Banner. Yeah.
Speaking of which, that was a cracking TV show.
It was brilliant.
I mean, you only saw the Hulk in like 10 minutes at the end, but every time. And somebody pointed that out recently, and I thought, oh shit, yeah. You wait around all the episode. It's like the A-Team, you wait around for them to be badass all the episode, and they're only badass for like 5 minutes at the end.
Yeah. But then sticking to the Hulk TV show, we got more cameos from Stan.
He was in the trial, wasn't he? The trial of
because obviously Matt Murdock was David's defense lawyer. So And then
the next one after that, and I forget which one it is now, but the one with Thor. And it was that dude from Robin Hood Men of Tights.
Was that Death of the Incredible Hulk? Was Thor in Death?
No, he lived in that. The Death, well, I don't think there were any cameos in Death. It was the one before Death, because Death was the one where he fell from the plane and died, but was supposed to come back, and had Bill Bixby not actually died in real life, he would have come back.
Yeah.
But Thor was definitely, because like I say, it was the big guy from Men in Tights.
Yes.
I can't remember his name now, but he was in American Pie as well, wasn't he? American Pie 3. But yeah, he was Thor, and there was another one as well. There was somebody else, and I can't remember who it was now. But Matt Murdock, I definitely remember, because Daredevil. And that was that was super cool back then, because you never saw that in live action.
Oh yeah.
And obviously Lou Ferrigno, a bit of a ledge.
Yep.
Fuck you, Hulk.
And then going off topic, but like Matt Murdock ninja suit well before Netflix ever brought it up.
Oh yeah. Well, I kind of get the feeling that was influenced. Come on now.
Yeah.
All the people are nerds. They all watch this shit. I mean, I watched it incessantly when I was a kid. The Incredible Hulk series. It was on a Saturday night. It's either that or Wonder Woman was on. It's like, come on now. I used to be terrified of the Incredible Hulk when I was a kid. Really scared. Not of the actual Hulk himself, but it's that bit where invariably Bill Bixby would jut out his jaw and he'd have the contacts in.
Yes.
And he's just about to change. And obviously you've got that great big, the most famous line in Famous Lines to Mr. McGee. Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. That's been parodied and used so many times. Yep.
And then
they subverted it.
Yeah?
They subverted it in the first Avengers movie, didn't they? And said, I'll let you know the secret. I'm always angry.
I'm always angry, yeah.
Awesome.
And then there's oh God, I can't think of his name, but your favourite comedian, Lee.
Stuart Lee.
Stuart Lee,
who
does the joke about, are you Ang Lee?
I'm angry. You won't like me when I'm angry.
Oh dear. Anyways,
Gosh, that film we don't talk about.
Oh,
not Ang Lee's fault at all.
No. Goodness,
I will say to the day I die, people have a right go at Ang Lee. I'm thinking they got Ang Lee to do the film. He'd made an Ang Lee film. Have you never seen The Ice Storm? Have you never seen Brokeback Mountain? That's what Ang Lee films are like.
That movie is literally cinematic knockout gas to me.
It's just shite. It's shite.
I don't think I've ever made it through it in one sitting.
How can you have a film with Nick Nolte in it that's not entertaining?
How
is that possible?
I know.
It's the bit with the poodles. That's the worst bit.
Yeah, the gamma dogs.
I don't blame anyone apart from Marvel Hierarchy for that film.
And then it's like Eric Bana. Or not Eric.
It is
Eric Bana. Yeah.
He was fine. Yeah. And Nolte was fine. And
Jennifer Connelly was the best part about that movie.
She wasn't Liv Tyler, though. Liv Tyler was better.
Yeah.
But I like Liv Tyler. And I certainly like The Incredible Hulk. And I've as much as I would have liked to have seen Edward Norton continue. However, had that happened, we would not have got Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, and Mark Ruffalo was just...
That'd be a crying shame if we didn't get Mark Ruffalo, wouldn't it? You know, because he is the Bill Bixby version of, the modern Bill Bixby. And like I say, Stan sort of had influence on that TV show. So that TV show, it's like the Riddler in Batman. So had the Riddler not been in the 60s show, the Riddler would never have come back as a character. That series, The Incredible Hulk, popularised and informed the comic and the cartoon and what came in film. Yeah. Because the Banner version, the Eric Banner version, isn't like Bill Bixby. Well, Edward Norton was a massive Bill Bixby fan. And he said, that's how it needs to be played, because you can't get better than how Bill Bixby played Bruce Banner and the Hulk. You can't get better than that portrayal. Yeah. Which is a shame, because the same cannot be said for the Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man. As much as I love it because it's nostalgic and it's my childhood, that was half-assed.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think we've talked about it before. It's not that it's bad, it's just half-assed.
It's the fact that you see him climbing walls when you can clearly see he's on like the second floor of a 3-story building.
Well, that's because it was filmed in LA.
I know.
It's like 2 or 3 skyscrapers in LA. The ones you see in the A-Team with the LA skyline, where you got the bit in the middle with the financial district. That's it. That's LA. That's all these skyscrapers are. New York is just skyscrapers, is Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. So that's why it works in Manhattan and doesn't work in LA.
Yeah.
Nicholas Hammond was a bit old, but that's fine. I think so was, Andrew Garfield was a bit old, and so was Tobey Maguire.
Mm-hmm.
I still say to this day, Tobey Maguire, dog shit. It's terrible. Worst depiction of Spider-Man. Worse than Nicholas Hammond.
And unofficially, Enter the Spider-Verse, the animated movie coming up. Unofficially, that's Tobey's Spider-Man.
Yes. But that's fine.
But then he's not voiced by Tobey, so that's good because, have you heard Tobey trying to crack jokes in any of the Spider-Man games? He's not a funny guy.
Well, it's because he didn't say anything in the films.
He's not a funny guy.
The first time we got Spider-Man cracking wise was Garfield. And to be fair, he was not as good as Tom Holland, but he was, very... Thing is, we're lucky now. We're all spoilt because we've had Tom Holland in 2 films now.
Yeah.
And he's really good. He is Spider-Man.
And the thing being is, like, we're getting something that I don't think anybody ever would have thought we ever would have gotten. Mysterio on the big screen.
Yeah, it's like Gyllenhaal, isn't it?
Jake Gyllenhaal, yeah. It's just like, oh my god, have you not seen the photos of him in costume? Oh.
I'm trying to stay away from it as much as possible.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Because I do like Jake Gyllenhaal. I love Mysterio.
Yeah.
Again, Sam doesn't get as much credit for villains as he should do. He done a lot of really iconic... I mean, Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery is probably second to the Flash's.
Yeah.
And Batman's. Yeah. He's got a really good Rogue Gallery as Spider-Man. Because obviously you've got the Green Goblin, who's his main nemesis. You've got Venom, who is sort of flip-flops.
Mm-hmm.
And is now kind of a good guy. Speaking of which, Venom. I really liked Venom.
I did too.
She'll never know it's us, Eddie.
I know. I went in having read all the negativity and all the crap and going to myself, I'm not going in here expecting it to be brilliant, but I'm not going in expecting it to be how bad everybody says it is. And I came out going, that was really good.
I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I really liked Venom. Way I see it, Eddie, we're both losers.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a loser on my planet, I'll be honest.
Yeah. There was that one time where he refers to himself as Venom.
Yeah.
The symbiote calls himself Venom when Venom is essentially the 2 characters together, but then the symbiote has a personality, so for the sake of the movie, the personality needed to have a name, so it makes it easier for people if
It's fine. I don't have a problem with it at all. They simplified the story. I don't think it needed to have Spider-Man in it.
No.
They mentioned the Bugle. He worked at the Bugle, and he left. Don't make Eddie a bad guy, because he's not really a bad guy. He was only a bad guy in the comics because he wasn't Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all right, he lied to get a story, but, newsmen do that shit all the time. We know
Yeah,
that.
well, yeah, that's journalists, but...
It's just competitive. He wasn't essentially a bad guy, and that's why he eventually became the anti-hero that he is, and Carnage became the evil one.
Yeah.
It's I really enjoyed it. I thought Tom Hardy was good. I'm looking forward, because he will eventually end up in the Spider-Verse, I reckon.
I think because it's been so popular and because it's made so much money, I think Sony have a bit more sort of power going into negotiations with Marvel to let Marvel keep access to Spidey and say, look, we want our Spider-Verse to at least fringe into. But then I would say with that, it is also a negative side in the fact that it's done so well, is we're getting fucking Morbius the living vampire. Which I don't even think I could bring myself. I love Venom as a character. I was going to go see it no matter what. I don't think I could see myself watching a Morbius movie, especially with it being Jared Leto.
Do you know what I think killed it off for your my generation?
What?
The 90s cartoon. The fact that it went on for fucking ever, did the bloody saga.
Yeah.
Mobius thing. It went on for like weeks and weeks and weeks. I had to sit through loads of bloody live and kicking and fucking Andy Peters to get through it.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that and the Sins of the Fathers. Just get on with it. That bloody 90s cartoon, I loved it, but Jesus Christ, it just dragged things out so much. Stan Lee was in that.
Yep.
He was in, when he was universe hopping, he was in our universe.
Mm-hmm.
And he took him on a little trip, and I must admit, I did cry a bit when I saw that the other day. But I loved all that stuff where they went to the different universes. And that's where you saw the Iron Spider first, and Ben Reilly and things like that. It was, a real eye opener. And Stan Lee must have been proud. I mean, if you look on Wikipedia, it says here category, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me get it up because, come on, bloody mouse. So, it says here, category, characters created by Stan Lee. The following 200 pages are in this category, out of approximately 362 total.
Right. Well, before we start naming random characters, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? That he made, because I wanna put this out here. Character that he made that's probably people don't realize that he made, that would be up there as one of your favorite characters. If that makes sense, what I'm trying to say. Okay. So, a character that you really, really love that Stan made, that maybe a lot of people don't realize that Stan made them. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
This might be just me thinking that a lot of people don't realize that Stan created this character, but She-Hulk.
Yeah, absolutely.
1980, if I remember correctly. Savage She-Hulk issue 1, which I think I do own. But everybody, I've got such a soft spot for Jen. She's just a really, really, and at the minute, I think she's just the Hulk. She's not even She-Hulk at the minute, unless that's been rebooted, because obviously Bruce was dead because Hawkeye had killed him with the gamma arrow, and Jen got infused with something that made her become that big Hulk and proper Hulk thing. So whether or not loads of people, like some of our listeners probably know that Stan created her, but I think sort of like maybe not everybody would remember, but yeah, she's like right up there.
Yeah, I think she's the light to the dark, isn't it? Because obviously she's the character that enjoys being the Hulk. Mm-hmm. Because she was a nobody before, and got pushed around, and that's never going to happen again. And it is sort of a really empowering character. Because the whole idea is that all that's changed is her outer casing. Yeah. Inside, she's still the same, because she doesn't change inside. No. She's the same Jennifer. It's that the whole point is that, all right, so the outer facade of her has changed, but inside, she always was that strong. She always was that awesome. Like Becky Lynch, she was the man.
Oh, Becky. Wow. And then there's that kind of sort of whole story where that arc is, and whether he intentionally did this or not, the fact that she was completely Jen inside, but outside she was She-Hulk and was She-Hulk, and for a long time was only ever able to be She-Hulk, and then obviously different writers have brought in different ways. I think who was it?
Certainly in the cartoon they kept her as She-Hulk all the time.
Trying to think of the guy who wrote the She-Hulk run, the more modern She-Hulk run. I can't think off the top of my head. The one where she basically, we're talking the 2000s run, where she became quite lighthearted and broke the fourth wall an awful lot, but worked for the law firm. Yeah, and I can't think who wrote it. Part of me wants to say Pac, but I don't think it was him. But anyways, I like that modern interpretation of her with the purple and white jumpsuit and stuff like that, But yeah, sorry, I haven't given you the opportunity to name somebody that maybe you like, that sort of maybe a lot of people don't realize that he created.
Well, I mean, there's absolutely loads of them. Obviously, Ant-Man was a big one. Created it with his brother. With Jack Kirby created all the Inhumanoids, so we got him to blame for them. Well, characters like Iron Man, obviously, it sounds obvious, but a lot of people sort of forget that it was him who created Iron Man, and it was a reaction to Cold War politics at the time, and obviously technology and talk about your flawed character. Tony Stark is pretty much his flaw. They toned it down in the movies, because obviously in the comics for a long time he was a raging alcoholic.
Yep.
And then sort of they toned all that down, just made him just generally in love with himself and flawed, and sort of implied the alcohol.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think it would have been a good idea to even simulate Robert Downey Jr. drinking.
Well, then there's a couple of times in the first two movies where he does drink, and then there's obviously the flashback to the beginning of Acts 3. Yeah, where he's obviously drinking quite, but he's never addressed as an alcoholic, I suppose, in that respect. So, but then what is it? Why am I blanking so much?
Old.
Yeah, it is. The bottle. Oh crap! The name of the story. I can't think. It's basically the one where they really, really deeply address his alcoholism. It's something. Is it Death in the Bottle or something like that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that would have made for a successful movie going. I think if they'd have focused on Tony's alcoholism in the movies, we wouldn't have the 10 years that we've had.
No, absolutely not. I think making him completely in love with himself, and that's his major flaw.
Yeah.
That he won't listen to other people, that he's an egomaniac, that he thinks he's always right, but he's always trying to atone for his parents dying. I think that's his major character flaw. And you know, it worked out really well, didn't it? Because Civil War was a fantastic film. And the fact that was all about him and Cap falling out rather than anything else, really. Who would have thought 10 years previous that would... Because I remember when Captain America: The First Avenger came out, and people were worried, man. They were really, really worried, and they were saying, how will this character translate to modern times? Because obviously Captain America. It's deeply uncool to be jingoistic, not xenophobic, you know what I mean, patriotic like that kind of thing. Will that work? And absolutely it worked. And I think part of the reason it worked is because Chris Evans committed to the role so much. And you know... but the Stan Lee version of the character that we got was a patriot, rightly or wrongly. And I think the good thing about Civil War is that it showed, and certainly Winter Soldier even, that Captain America is a patriot. It doesn't mean to say he always agrees with the government. He's for America. He's not for the American government. And I think that is definitely a Stan Lee concept.
Yeah, I think there's a few lines in Winter Soldier that are very Stan, like the I'm going to totally misquote it, but basically it's like whenever somebody preempts preempts people die every time, you know, sort of, you know, the bit I'm on about where he's basically giving Fury the lecture down in the hangars. They're like, this isn't protection, this is what is it, this is war or something, I can't remember. It's been a while since I've watched. I'm actually working my way through. I was watching Doctor Strange last night in bed, but there's an awful lot of Stan, I think, in those Captain America movies, and that probably comes a lot from Chris. But then and I found this out recently, but Stephen McFeely and what's the other writer called? I can't think. That's been writing all the movies recently. They are massive fans of all of Stan's work, and have been since they were kids and growing up and stuff like that. So, literally, sort of like a lot of these writers are taking sort of stuff that from the comic books and putting it in there because they want to, they want to make these things become iconic
Oh, yeah.
beyond the written page, because obviously it's like when you look at it, it's whenever they did the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, that opening scene with him clutching onto the cross, that's completely iconic, and that movie, well, probably didn't make it more iconic, but then the spoiler alert, the Netflix show kind of does a variant of it as well, which probably has made it slightly more iconic. But in that respect, it's like Groot. Stan Lee made Groot. Stan Lee created Groot. Okay, he it was with with his brother and and then there was another guy.
Larry Lieber and Joe Simon, I think again, was it?
I think it might have been, yeah. But then the whole, sort of like, hey, let's have a living tree, and he can only say, I am Groot, and look how
Jack Kirby.
Kirby, yeah. Like, look how iconic Groot is now.
Well, absolutely. And I think part of the thing is that the filmmakers. I mean, you look at Infinity War. Certainly, the cosmic elements of it are pure Stan Lee, and certainly a lot of Jack Kirby thrown in there as well. And I think the two are now interchangeable. I think the movies are an accurate reflection. I think it took them a while to get there because I think the movies certainly try to be something separate from the comics in the era of like Sam Raimi. So those three Spider-Man films are Sam Raimi films. They're not Marvel until they got Kevin Feige, which I think I'm pronouncing correctly.
It is Feige, yeah.
Until he got on board, and obviously he's a massive Stan Lee fanboy. That's when the proper MCU started, and obviously Iron Man, first off, that's the start of it all, and not the Incredible Hulk, not the first Hulk movie, and obviously anything that came before, like the 90s Captain America film. That's a nigger. And certainly not the Red Brown Captain America, which is a shame because they're awesome, but never mind. Those films onwards, sort of Iron Man onwards, are proper Stan Lee inspired. Pieces of work, and you can look at something like Guardians of the Galaxy and think, yep, definitely Stan Lee inspired. That's the comics I used to read as a kid. That they're just up on screen, that's all. So like we said, I mean, the legacy will continue. The legacy is not going away. He hasn't worked at Marvel properly since 1970 anyway.
Yeah.
He was president emeritus, so he's president for life. And he will always be associated with Marvel, and it's always going to be the case that voice is always going to come and for some of us give a nice fuzzy warm feeling in our hearts because we know it's going to be all right. And DC, as much as I love DC, they've never had that.
No,
they've never had it, and that's what differentiates Marvel from them, and why some people, inevitably are going to be more Marvel fans than DC fans. And I've got to the stage now where it's like Blur and Oasis. It's silly. Yeah. It's just like both.
I definitely think back when I was younger, I would have been very DC suck. But you got to admit, sort of like the Flash TV show is just consistently really good. They can do certain things right. Their cinematic universe has been here and there and here and there. But
I think it's getting back on track with the films that are coming up. Certainly Aquaman, the buzz for Aquaman's quite good.
Yeah.
Shazam looks fantastic.
Yeah, you see, Shazam I'm fine with. Aquaman, the character just doesn't interest me at all. I don't think it'll be one I'll rush to the cinema to see, unfortunately. But
Wonder Woman 84, I definitely can't wait for Wonder Woman 84.
I'm kind of pissed that they've put that they pushed it back.
Well, it'd be competing against Star Wars.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
What's the point? Why would you do that to yourself? Be smarter. It's a summer blockbuster movie anyway.
Yeah.
It should never have been in November, December. It should have been in summer all the time. Plus, I want them to get it right. Plus, Pedro Pascal's in it, so I'm more than fine with that. And Kristen Wiig, who I love.
It's I can't envision her as it's Tigra, isn't it? Or Cheetah. Sorry, Tigra is apart from obviously Thundercats. It's the name of the
Tigress.
No, there's the girl from
the Avengers.
Yeah.
That shitty version, that shitty cartoon. Remember that?
Yeah.
United We Stand. That's it. Oh.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
bad.
yeah.
It's so bad. And yet they got rid of Earth's Mightiest Heroes for the other one, didn't they? Oh.
Well, see, the new one isn't that bad. See when you get into it, but because it was like Avengers, and then it was like the Ultron Imperative, and then they did a thing with Thanos. I think it was like Thanos Wars or something like that. You know, it's been okay, but I haven't watched it in a while. But yeah,
they did an episode where Falcon's mum came to stay. Come on now. just awful, just the worst. I'm sorry, it's not Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
No, it never will be.
That is rivaling Justice League, rivaling.
Yeah.
But there we go. Okay, favorite last thing now. Favorite Stan Lee memory, the thing you will take away.
Oh, I don't know if I can actually put it down to one. What I will give you is my Stan Lee regret. Is that I never, ever got to meet the man. You got lucky enough to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Timing's just never. Any time he was at a show that I potentially could have went to, it just didn't work out. And that's the second big hero in my life that's gone that I've regretted. Although Harold Ramis never did appearances and stuff, so the chances of meeting him would have been very, very slim. But yeah, I'm going to go the really sort of easy and sort of probably slightly cheesy one, in the respect that just that iconic voice for those cartoons when I was a kid. And because I knew once I heard that bit at the beginning that I knew I was going to have a good time for those 15, 20 minutes, 22 minutes, whatever length the episodes were back then. I can't think off the top of my head right now. Generally, I think it was about 20, wasn't it? Yeah, and you know, we haven't even scratched the surface. You know, like he's done so much. He did that sort of cartoon with Pamela Anderson and everything. You know, the guy has had such a wide and varied career that
He's going to do a series of The Governator as well, wasn't he?
It was. That's right. Yeah.
He did that lame show where I want to be a superhero with Stan Lee or whatever it was called.
Yes, that was actually kind of fun.
It was kind of fun, but
it was shit. Yeah,
it was shit.
I remember watching it, going, "Why did I not know about this? I want to go on that." But then you had to design your own superhero and use their powers to get through. And it's just, I'd have just been sort of like 3 Marvel characters mushed into one, and they'd have been like, no.
Yeah, I'd have just been Captain America. Well, you can't use them because they're Marvel.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, there's so much that the man has done and brought to us, and it's and as I say, it's probably been such a long time since I've actually read any of his work, because I probably only have sketchy bits here and there. But yeah, no, he's it's still hard to think that you're not going to see the videos pop up and stuff like that. And although in the end they're sort of like, in a way, you kind of are, I don't want to say glad that he's gone, but it's relieved because he's in a better place because he's been ill. There's the accusation of elder abuse. You know, there was all the crap about sort of like people allegedly trying to take over his estate and stuff like that, and it's like, don't be doing this. It's just, this man is an icon to everybody, and you're just sullying it, and let us remember him for what he was, and yeah, I'd rather remember him for what he was than what it became at the end. Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. Obviously, I did meet him, so that's probably right up there with all my the all-time moments of Stan Lee that I've had. But I couldn't agree with you more on the fact that you heard him on the cartoons, and again, that's just something you didn't get with Super Friends. You didn't get the guy who created the comic talking to you on telly and telling you what was going to happen, and this is Mighty Marvel Action Hour and all this kind of stuff. And it was just an amazing body of work. And like I say, he's almost godlike, won't go away. His legacy is everywhere you look because everything is Marvel. I mean, the fact of the matter is, everything he touched, not necessarily created, but everything he touched was a pop culture phenomenon. And those films are like sort of in the first sort of 5 top films of all time, the highest grossing films. His films, or the films that he helped create, infesting the top 10 and will do forever.
Yep.
And when Infinity War Part 2 or whatever it's called comes out, that's going to again be in the top 5 at least. So yeah, we're lucky that we lived in a time where someone as creative as that and as willing to push himself out there to sell what he'd created was around. We were lucky to live in that time.
I think whenever, because Captain Marvel's obviously the next movie that's due out, I think whenever we either get at the beginning, dedicated to the memory of, or if that's at the end,
that's going to be hard.
That's going to be a breaking point as well.
I reckon it'll be at the start.
Yeah,
for Stan.
There's an awful lot of sort of cash in at the minute as well, and I don't want to sort of address that sort of in respect. But what I will say is, Marvel / Hasbro now need to complete. There was a Build-A-Figure Stan Lee figure. It was like solicited, for the 10th anniversary box sets that have been coming out, and ultimately they pulled it. And I think for people like myself that collect figures and sort of stuff like that and are a big fan, I think that's the one thing I would like to come out.
Yeah.
All of these T-shirts, etc., I think are maybe just a bit in poor taste at this point in time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think they're terrible. And anybody making and promoting them, you're an awful person. Basically, you're awful. Sorry, you're making. At least send them, some of the profits to a charity, or say that's going to happen instead of just sort of raping his dead body. Just stop it. It's awful, and I don't like it.
And I would say if Hasbro finally maybe do the figure, that there may be something like that. Because obviously Stan was. Had his fingers in loads of pies, and I'm sure he helped lots of sort of charities along the years, but never sort of talked about them. But yeah, I would like that to maybe be sort of like the positive
beneficiary.
A positive to come out of this, sort of like for a little bit of a memory for everybody. But it's I don't really want to flog a dead horse on that point, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Excellent stuff. Well, obviously, it is a sad goodbye. But like I say, it's not goodbye forever because we've still got the cameos that he's going to be in. We've got his legacy all around us. It stands pretty much, like we said at the top of the show, pretty much immortal. And sort of stands with all the great creators and great pop culture phenomena there's ever been. But there we go. Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you'd like to promote or anything you'd like to sort of say with social media? Can we get in touch with you, or would you prefer that we all fucked off?
It's not that I want everybody to fuck off.
I do.
I obviously sort of like I don't broadcast my social media out there, but it's just good to be here to reach out to everybody again, and there are ways sort of like most of the people that are probably listening to this will probably know me in some way, shape or form, and probably haven't heard from me in a long time. Work is busy. I have a 2.5-year-old, sort of like who runs around singing and everything, so life is busy, and I just want everybody to know, like, I may be absent, but I'm not away. If that makes sense. It's just like I'm lurking, always creeping, never sleeping is the little thing we use in work. But it's I'm here. If you are friends with me on anything, sort of like reach out. I do like the fact that sort of like to talk to people, but obviously it isn't always like I miss doing this. It's just it's not always feasible, and
We get you on enough, don't we? We try and get you on.
Yeah, I'll try and sort of make myself available a bit more. Now that Ariel's getting up a bit more, sort of like it's easier maybe to get in than it was whenever she was a little tiny thing. But it's so I don't want you all to fuck off, but I don't want you all to like come and creep over my pictures.
Yeah, don't do that. That's not right. If you want to get in touch with the podcast, however, because obviously if you want to get in touch with Phil and you don't sort of know his social media or any of his handles, then come talk to him through this and I'll pass any message on.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You can do that through Facebook, which is facebook.com/BTTEpod, and on the Twitter, which is @BTTEpod, and also myself, which is Glenn Jakeman on Twitter. Please do send a message if you are going to try and add me, though, just so I know who you are. And obviously anybody can add me on Twitter. I don't really mind on there, which is @CymruNerdCave. So yes, there we go.
I suppose in a way... Sorry to butt in. Twitter is a way that you can kind of get me because I don't really post anything personal there. It's @ShieldAgent_616.
There we are. I will put that up as somewhere where you can get in touch with Phil. Excellent stuff. The other thing I was going to do, rather than a song today, I'm not going to play a song. I'm just going to play us out. I'm going to see if I can find on YouTube a couple of Stan Lee stories that he tells. One about making Spider-Man, the one I always do, which I'm not going to do on this point. And see if I can find the one where he talks about Bruce Banner not being Bruce Banner, because it's quite funny. And if you do want to see sort of Magic Myths and Monsters, I think it's called. I think it is on YouTube with Kevin Smith. That he talks to Kevin Smith a lot about comics and creating things. And it's interesting. It's good stuff. And he was always a good raconteur, was old Stan. Excellent stuff. Phil, thank you for being on.
Thank you for asking me to be here.
That's all right. We'll get you on again very, very soon, I'm sure. Say bye-bye to all the lovely people, would you?
Bye-bye, lovely people.
Goodbye, everybody. We'll be back next week, and it's the start of Crimblemas. Woo!
Martin said to me, "Hey, you're on a roll. We got the Fantastic Four and the Hulk. Do another one." I walked in and I said, "I have an idea for Spider-Man, a book called Spider-Man about a teenager who has a lot of problems." Oh, this time Martin wouldn't go along with me. He said, "Stan, I'm surprised at you. Don't you realize people hate spiders? You can't call a hero Spider-Man. And a hero can't be a teenager. A teenager can only be a sidekick. And you say you want him to have problems? Don't you know what a superhero is?" So he was the boss, and I couldn't put Spider-Man out. But I don't remember, it was months later, a year later, we had a book we were going to kill. When you drop a book, nobody cares what you put in the last issue because you're killing it. So just to get it out of my system, I put Spider-Man and I featured him on the cover. The book went on sale. And later, when the sales figures came in, Martin came running into my office and said, "Stan, do you remember that character of yours, Spider-Man, that we both liked so much? Why don't you do a series of them?" And I will never forget that.